What's up, everyone? Kriddle here, and I want to talk a little bit about mental health and video games. This is a big topic for me since I've been playing video games for 40 years, and I did struggle with some depression and anxiety and things like that as I was growing up. And I see a lot of parents that are also struggling with this. I'm in some different Facebook groups and Discord groups and things like that where parents are often asking questions. They're like, hey, how do you deal with this situation? And I see a lot of them say, just take it away, take the video game away from them. And from my experience, that doesn't always work. It a lot of times just escalates things and makes it a little bit worse. So this is not coming from a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm nothing like that. I'm just a gamer and a dad. And, these are some things that I've worked with on myself and with my kids and trying to help them process some of these things. So, first and foremost, let's go through one of the concerns. I'm only going to go over a few of the concerns today, and we'll give you some solutions for those, and hopefully they'll help you out. If they do, please let me know, and maybe we can do another video with some different concerns and some solutions. So that's going to be how we're going to do this. So first concern that I see a lot of is kids isolate themselves. So isolation is a big issue within video games, and it usually leads to depression and anxiety within kids. And this could be a million different reasons of why these kids isolate themselves. Maybe they're being picked on at school, maybe they're just not happy with their home life or social life or whatever. And they come straight home, they go into their bedrooms, they shut themselves away, and they just play video games for hours. That can be a concern. I would say that sometimes if the kids want to do that, that's absolutely okay. Just like going and reading a book or going and watching a movie by yourself. And sometimes you just need that alone time. But if they're doing it for hours and hours and hours on end, and they're not having any of those social activities, they're, having issues with social skills, then maybe we can look at that. Some of those solutions are social games. So rather than saying, hey, I don't like you playing these video games all the time, I'm going to take your console away, or I'm going to take your computer away, and you need to go outside and make friends, that's only going to increase their anxiety. It's going to feel like they have to go do these things rather than doing something that they enjoy. There's a lot of social games out there. Mario games, there's a lot of different types of Mario games. You have Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario Wonder. Those are all examples. Animal Crossing is another very big social game. I loved playing that with my son back when COVID hit. That's when that game released, the newest Animal Crossing, and it was a fantastic way to keep up with a lot of my friends and family long distance. I played that game a ton, probably too much, honestly, but I socialized during it. Fortnite is another one. I don't play Fortnite anymore, but I used to play it quite a bit. And it's a big game. I know a lot of kids love that game, and you can socialize with that. Now, of course, we need to be careful with how our kids socialize. We need to make sure they're only talking to the people that we approve. And that's going to be a whole other topic that we can get into on how to set parental settings on some of these different games. But it is a fantastic social game where kids can go out, they can learn teamwork, and then they can just kind of talk with their friends and stuff like that. Another one is Minecraft. I'm sure you've heard of that one as well. There's another fantastic social game that I would recommend. So that's a couple of different things that you can do. The last thing I'm going to say about that is sit down and try to play some of these games with your kids. Even if it's a single player game, just sit down and actually play the game with them. If you start talking to them about the game, they're going to get ecstatic. My son loves it when I just sit there and listen to him about whatever it is that he wants to talk about. Every kid just wants someone to listen to them talk about the stuff that they love. And that has really helped my relationship with him. Next up, we are going to talk about low physical activity. So this one kind of goes along with the other one where they just isolate themselves and they sit there and play games for hours. But specifically, some kids, are just like, they don't do enough. They need to exercise a little bit more. They need to get out there, move around. We all know that moving is good for our bodies. And, what do they say? A body at rest stays at rest and whatever. So we do want to get our kids moving. And if this is a concern that you may have, one of the solutions, or the only solution that I can think of, is if they love video games, again, don't say, hey, I'm going to take your video games away, so go outside and play, throw the ball around, whatever. but there are active games. So maybe they just really love video games. They really want to play them. Then find some active games out there. There are plenty of them to choose from. Just Dance, Beat Saber, Dance Dance Revolution was one of the first ones that came out a long time ago, and now they have a ton of other ones. If you go to some of your local arcades, they will probably have these different platforms where people can dance and do the Dance Dance Revolution style game. I don't even know what they're called anymore. Pokemon Go is another one. I did that one with my son. This is one that you can do with your child. And I started playing Pokemon Go with my son when we were, let's see, this is years ago. So he was probably four or five. And we had a playground or a park that we would walk around, and it had a couple Pokestops on it, and we would catch different Pokemon. So we would get our exercise by walking around the park. And then also we're communicating and we're gaining those social skills and things like that at the same time. And it was just a connection between my son and I really, really enjoyed that. Another one would be Mario Party with motion controls. So there is a Mario Party game. It's called Mario Party. And it has the motion controls in there. So maybe, a kid has limited mobility. They can still get to some of these games that help them out. There's a lot of VR games out there too. However, the VR games, I don't want to recommend necessarily. That's something that we'd have to talk about in a different video, because VR games, at a certain age, there is some talk that they could mess up the development of a child's brain and their vision and things like that. So I don't want to say one way or the other. I personally like VR games, but you might want to look into a little bit more information about those and see how it would work with your kid before you get involved in that. So those are a couple possible solutions to low physical activity for a kid that loves games. And the final concern that I want to talk about is aggression. This is probably the biggest one that I see, is kids that just get super aggressive when you tell them to get off their game. They want to scream and yell. They want more time, all of that kind of stuff. Or maybe they're playing the game and the game itself gets them frustrated. Like, it's just a really hard game and they can't seem to get past this one level, and it just continually frustrates them. So for that, setting expectations is the easiest way I can explain this. So when your child gets onto a video game, set the expectation of when they're supposed to get off. I would also set expectations of what they have to do to be able to play their game. Some parents like to say, finish your chores, finish your homework, those kind of things, and then you can play your games afterwards. I don't like to give my son specific time constraints and say you only have 2 hours to play, because then he's going to play for those 2 hours and then possibly get aggressive. I like to say, okay, well, you can play it as much as you want as long as these other things are done, your chores and things, and then you can play it as long as you want up until a certain time. Like, have a time cutoff. Like, say you need to be off by 8:30, and getting ready for bed, or whatever your time frame is, depending on the age of your kid and what you want to do in your household. So that's one thing that I do like to do with my son. So if he wants to play for 4 hours, he can start at 4 p.m. as long as everything else is done, and play all the way through 8:30 p.m. if he wants to. But if he takes longer to get his chores done, then he loses his own time. He knows what time he's allowed to get on, which is whenever his stuff's done, and he knows what time he's supposed to be getting off. The next thing is, so that's an end point, but then setting clear consequences for this. So in the beginning, saying, hey, if you do not get off at the 8:30 time frame, then next time we're going to cut it back to 7:30. Next time we're going to cut it back, to 6:30, and take away an hour or so. If it continues, then say, okay, we're going to take it away for a whole day. You do not get it, tomorrow. And then if it continues from there, you gradually build up to it. I see a lot of parents that are just like, I just want to take it away right then immediately, because they have one argument with their kid and they're fed up with it and they're over it. And I totally understand that. But when you do that, when you just take it away first, they are going to get more aggressive. The other thing with that is when they get frustrated in a game. So that's another issue that I want to kind of cover, is they're frustrated with the game. They can't get through a level, things like that. It's easier if you sit down with them, try to de-escalate the situation first. They're, screaming and yelling, and say, hey, give me a second, sit down with them for just a couple minutes and say, what is the issue with the game? Where are you having trouble? Maybe you're a gamer, maybe you're not a gamer, so maybe you may not be able to help them, but maybe by just talking to them and asking them what the problem is, or maybe say, hey, can you show it to me? And having them play through it usually calms them down. It does for my son to be able to say, hey, here's where I'm having trouble. I'm going to show you this, and it's this jump right here. I cannot make that jump. And by them talking about it and taking a minute, and then the two of you can talk about that a little bit more, and usually that brings them down a little bit. It helps them to relax. In addition to that is remind them it's just a game. This is not going to be, most likely their career. This is not going to be something that they're going to be doing the rest of their lives, although I kind of did turn it into my career, but I have learned to cope with those situations. I don't get super frustrated with games anymore. If I fail over and over and over to the same thing, I'm like, I'm failing over and over and over. Let's come back to it later. Maybe let's go power up a little bit more, go grab some more items, that kind of thing, and just remind them it is a game. Now, if they are playing competitively, something like League of Legends or Fortnite, those kind of things, and they're playing competitively, then they should have a coach that will be able to deal with those for them, right? So if they get super upset about something and they start freaking out, they need a coach. If they're actually playing competitively and they're on that level and they're good enough to play competitively, get them a coach and go that way with it. It's the same thing as if, you're playing a sport, maybe playing baseball or basketball or something at a school, and they lose their game. You don't usually deal with those meltdowns. The coach will deal with that for you, and they'll say, hey, we lost this one. Let's move on to the next one. That is literally the coach's job. That is not your job. So in my opinion, if they are playing competitively and they're trying to get into a school for a scholarship in competitive gaming, then coach is where you need to go with that. So those are my three big topics that I want to talk about, or wanted to talk about. And hopefully those helped you out a good bit. The last thing I want to say before we wrap everything up is to educate yourself on these games. So actually sit down, read up on these games, maybe play the games if you can. That's how I connect with my son very easily, is because I already play most of these games. I know what the game is going to be before I even introduce it to him, before I go out and buy it for him or anything. I usually play them myself, or I sit down with him the first time he plays them and we play them together. And that helps quite a bit with understanding and being able to say, hey, you need to get off this game, and well, there's no save point right now, or I've got 10 minutes left in this game and there's a timer going or something, and understanding, okay, well, you can't just stop it immediately. Then at the end of that round, at the end of that game, as soon as you get to a save point, your next stopping point, this is where you can save. And I know exactly where those stopping points are, so I can just look at the console, look at whatever he's doing and say, hey, right there is your save point. Go ahead and wrap it up right there. And 9 times out of 10, he doesn't argue about it. Sometimes he will. Sometimes he'll be like, oh, I really want to go do this. And there's times when I'm like, okay, go ahead and finish that. And then there's other times where I'm like, no, you do not need to finish that right now. Go ahead and save it. We'll get back to it later. And that usually helps out. If you want to read up on games and you're actually not a gamer yourself, there is a website called Common Sense Media, and it's commonsensemedia.com, spelled out exactly like that. I'll put it down in the description so you can check that out. But it tells you all about media in general, not just video games, but movies and TV shows and those kind of things as well. And it gives you two different ways to look at it, the kid's point of view and the parent's point of view. And it's a great way to find out what that particular game or whatever it is that you're going to be doing, what that includes, so that you know a little bit more about it before you go and get it for your kid. And it really does help out being able to understand where your child is coming from when they have these meltdowns or when they get upset about something. So anyway, hopefully that helps you guys out. If it does, please like, subscribe, follow. Please give me any comments. Let me know if there's anything else you would like to hear about. I do stream daily over on Twitch. If you want to, bounce in there and just say, hey, what's a good game for this? I'm happy to talk to you. Doesn't matter what game I'm currently playing. I'm happy to talk to everybody about anything gaming. We even talk about TV shows and movies and things like that quite often as well. I do also have a Discord channel. Again, I'll have that down in the description below. You can come in the Discord channel and chat with me there. And you can direct message me through Discord as well. So if you can't get me during my live stream, if you don't want to comment directly on YouTube, you can come to Discord and send me a private message if you join my Discord server. And we'll just talk privately in the background. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And hopefully I see you next time. Bye.